Welcome, Impactful Parents. It's time for the Impactful Parenting Podcast, where I give you parenting tips and resources to make you a more impactful parent to your school-age child. I am your host, Kristina Campos. Don't forget that the podcast is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Start your journey to becoming a more impactful parent by downloading the Impactful Parent app, available on your phone's app store or by going to theimpactfulparent.com. See you on the inside. Welcome, Impactful Parents. Today we're going to be talking about how single dads are better than single moms at parenting. I know, I just found this out too. It blew my mind. Hello, my name is Kristina Campos, and I'm founder of The Impactful Parent, and I help parents of school-age children who want to stay one step ahead of their kids to turn their chaos into connection with their adolescent. I'm a mom of 4. I'm a teacher that has taught every grade from preschool through high school, and today I help moms and dads like yourself to navigate that exhausting, confusing, and frustrating, but rewarding world of parenting. So welcome to The Impactful Parent. And today I also have my co-host with me today, Rodrigo Bravo. And Rodrigo is a co-parenting mediator out of the state of Texas. He is a parenting coach, and he is a dad of 2 boys. Rodrigo brings a dad's perspective onto the Impactful Parent stage to give you even more expertise and an added perspective to our parenting topics. I am super excited to talk about this today because it blew my mind. So, Rodrigo, welcome. Did you know that dads, actually single dads, fare better at parenting than single moms?
I think that's a loaded statement you just said right now. So let's tread carefully before we start dissecting this and see what it's all about. But I did know that there's some statistics out there that show that there's some differences between the levels of parenting, I guess, whether on the socioeconomic front or so forth. So, but I want to be careful treading along that. So definitely, I recommend folks watch the video first, just like we did, and kind of like see what she says, and then we're going to talk about it.
Let's present that video now.
Women get custody because the court system favors them.
No, but okay.
And I'll tell you what.
Go on.
And men are punished for being traditional in this country. They are, because the way the court system and see this, I'm gonna talk about this because I know things. The code is written. It's basically the person that spends the most time with the child. Yeah. Well, if a man wants to protect and provide for his family, who does that punish? The guy for doing the right thing.
But the children spend more time with the mothers. Sometimes men are not as involved.
Correct.
But it's because children that want to go with them.
It's because they're at work, though. Yeah. But and then if you look at let's talk about what's in the best interest of the child. When you look at single father homes, they fare very similar to 2-parent households. When you look at single mother homes, they become criminals.
I didn't know that. Yep.
They become criminals, drug dealers, school shooters. Every really problem that you can look at in society comes from single mother homes. Single father homes, not the same.
What's the name of?
And it's true, somewhat, like you said. Research is there. Single mom households actually do have worse grades, more suicide, more depression, more anxiety, worse graduation rates, more criminal offenses, like all this bad stuff. So it really shocked me. But this is what I found. Having 2 parents together is always the best scenario. But with single dads, the number of single father households, it has been increasing over the years. And in 2019, around 7% of all U.S. households with children were headed by single fathers. Now, only 7% in 2019. So that's not a ton, as we know. But there was a study by Amato Gilbreth in 1999 that found that children in single father households tend to have higher academic achievement and exhibit fewer behavioral problems compared to those of single mother households. And lastly, there's this other research by O'Keefe, a guy named O'Keefe and Boss, in 2014 that suggested that children raised by single fathers may have better mental health outcomes compared to those of single mother households. But it still brings me back to this overall arching theme that if you were to compare a single mother household and a single father household, the chances of the single father household to have that type of what we consider successful child, so maybe a child that, goes to school, is a good person in society, doesn't have a criminal record, is actually much more common, or the odds are better in the single father household. And it just surprises me, but I want to explore this because why? Like, why would that actually be? I don't know. Give me your first thoughts on this.
Why are these statistics the way they are? And for me, I immediately go into, okay, the resources. What's the resource allocation between both groups? However, like you said, single parent households are on the rise. Why is that? There's a number of factors, but I would say, and I would argue, that the vast majority of it is because fathers now have more resources, right? And courts are more willing to look at the bigger picture. And I think one of the things, though, when you look at this particular statistic, is that when we talk about men that do get custody, you're talking about men that have resources to go to court, to get those rights, fight for those rights, and challenge those rights. Most men, and I'll even put myself in that category, I didn't necessarily have the resources to do that. The state of Texas, at least here in Texas, they provide legal representation for moms. So if a non-custodial father is late on child support, for example, she doesn't have to go out there and hire a lawyer. She doesn't have to look for resources. No, she just said, she calls the OAG, the Office of the Attorney General, says, hey, he hasn't paid child support, or it didn't go through, and boom, the office starts working on her behalf. On the flip side, if there's ever some type of custodial issue or something that, hey, she's denying me, my visitation, this and that, I don't get that same luxury, if you will. But I can't go to the Texas Attorney General and make a statement and say, hey, I need help with this and that. They'll just be like, oh, that's a civil matter. You're going to have to plead your case with the courts. And now you're asking me, a father of two, to represent himself pro se in a court setting that I have zero familiarity with. And so going back to my original point, I think fathers that have custody of their kids, full-time custody, are typically those that do have those resources, that have access to lawyers, that have access to those resources so they can fight for the custody and eventually, win that out. That usually means that they already have resources too. That usually means that they have, money to spend there to do that, And so I think there's a variety of factors going on there that where men are already in a kind of position where they can provide benefits that are not as, hard fought, if you will, for moms, that are starting off. And then the last point I make, and I know I just went over on that one, but the last point I make is that I always find it funny, and maybe this is just a pet peeve of mine, but I always find it funny when we blame single parent moms for the households. And we there's a lot of times there's also an absentee father. We're not even talking about single parent mom and non-custodial father. We're talking about single parent mom with a completely absent father. Those don't bear out in the stats. And so, you're talking about moms now that have to basically play double time when it comes to the father role. And so there's a variety of things there. And I think initially when I heard that, I did have some disbelief, but I also knew that those stats can be kind of skewed a little bit depending on the perspective that you take. I hope I didn't take too long. Well, I know I took too long, but that's the kind of the idea that I had when I first saw that video.
I think that you make some really good points about how the statistics are just depending on how you look at things. And one of the things that you said I want to note is when you're talking about single moms, is the single mom like me, where I'm a single mom, I'm not married, I'm divorced, and I have 4 children, and I'm trying to raise them on my own, but their dad is definitely still in their life. And you can't compare me to a mom who got completely abandoned. She's literally with her 4 children all by herself, trying to, do everything, play both roles of both parents. I just think that's like apples and oranges. I don't compare myself to that type of single mother because I'm way more fortunate than that by having their dad still in their life. He's an active person, even though, yes, the kids are with me grand majority of the time. And if you've seen any of our other episodes, we're not really 50-50. I have them most of the time, but he's still there. He still comes and visits. He's a presence. He's an influence. So I'm not the same as a mom who doesn't get that. And yet it seems like these statistics, I'm wondering, is there a difference in what we're seeing in statistics? Because I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me like that's accurate.
It's super important to understand that there's so many different factors that go along with that. And I think that's a great example that you just gave right now. That, you are classified, if we had to kind of benchmark you as a single mom, right?
Yeah.
But your circumstances is way different based on the work that I've done and with the folks that I've worked with. I definitely can see where single moms have had much more of a burden and therefore don't have kind of quote unquote the free time or the luxury to be doing other things. When you're taking care of kids 24/7, it's tough. It's really tough. And I acknowledge that. I was a co-parent, non-custodial parent for both of my boys. But at the same time, I recognized, wow, that switch for my boys' moms never really turned off, even when the boys were with me, as opposed to when I had the boys, I dropped them off at Sunday at 6, and I'm over here going out, I'm over here, partying, whatever, I'm relaxing, this and that. The switch was off.
You were relaxing?
Yeah,
Single moms don't relax, Rodrigo.
and so I think that also kind of plays into that, where single moms don't have that kind of luxury to do that. And single dads, a lot of times, that's one thing I wanted to mention on the Pew Research. They mentioned in that article on the study that over I think it was 56% of the single dads, actually cohabitate with somebody else. And so they're single dads, but apparently there's somebody else there. That plays a big difference. You're talking about more than half of the dads have a support system there. That makes a big difference. I didn't have to find a babysitter. I didn't have to, how much it's going to cost and do like a ROI. It's just ridiculous. What you have to do as a single mom, as a single parent that has to go through those kind of financial considerations, time considerations, and maybe not be able to spend extra time doing something else. So I think it is kind of skewed. I think there's different ways to look at it, but in the end, I really don't. I got to be honest. I don't subscribe to the whole theory. Automatically single dads are better than single moms. I really think it's more of a case by case basis.
Impactful parents, become a part of the show. This is so cool that I am inviting moms and dads from all walks of life and backgrounds to join me in my virtual recording studio. I am super excited because you get to add your opinions and comments to the parenting topic. Plus, you get a shout out your business. Just submit an interest form at theimpactfulparent.com/guest to sign up. Well, I love that you advocate for single moms and that you're, you just said some really wonderful things about single moms and the empathy there. I just thank you for that. And I'm going to say, I think single dads get the short end of the stick a lot and should have more opportunity to be single fathers when the mom is not at her best. You also talked about these situations about there being a female in the man's household. And I want to elaborate on that because as you're talking, one of the things that I was thinking was, devil's advocate, let's say somebody out there is like, yes, I agreed with that video, and single moms are not as proficient at parenting as single dads. So then it poses the questions, how can mothers improve? But one of the things that I think that plays a big role in that is that it is undeniable in any kind of research that having the presence of both your parents, a female and a male, or just two parents in the household, is the best thing for the child, right? And so if having both male and female role models in a child's life is that important and statistically gives the best chance for success of upbringing, then it's so much easier for a father to fill up a child's life with a positive woman influence than it is for a mother to fill up a child's life with a positive man influence. Like in my opinion, I really believe that, because a single dad who is strong and stable and financial is so much more desirable for a female equivalent, and the value of women, unfortunately, and I hate this, is held in our beauty and her body and her fertility. And all that goes away when you're a mom. Well, maybe not all of it goes, but it definitely hurts as we get older as women, and our value gets less perceived as we grow older and as we have children, and again, if we get divorced. So since children benefit the most from having equal amounts of female and male influences in their lives, it seems to me like it's so much easier to hit that balance for a man, to find another female to come into the life and play that role model, than it is for a woman to find a good man to come in and be that role model. Even if he can't find a romantic partner, teachers, the majority of teachers are female. And so even if he's the single father at home, he sends his kid off to school, there's a high probability that the teacher is a female teacher and is being that in place role model, that's female role model in that child's life. And again, women don't get that. There's not a lot of male teachers out there. So I just feel like hitting that balance for women is just so much harder, and it's just not fair.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Kristina. And I'm glad you brought that up, especially because, using our real life experiences, or, you and I'm sure you felt that. I'm sure you went through that, and you understand that a little bit more than, maybe somebody else that is just listening in, isn't a parent or isn't a single parent or whatnot. And I know for a fact that what you said is 100% correct. I know that when I was a single father, there in those, in the quote unquote dating pool, or, with my partners and so forth, there was a huge difference between my single parenthoodness, if you will, and my partner's single parenthoodness, where, mine was seen as more of a, okay, yeah, he has two kids, but it's okay, this and that. And look, he's got a great job now, and he's doing this, he's doing that. Oh, and he sees them on the weekends and this and that, right? That's the viewpoint. And for both women and men, right? They're both seeing that. And so I think you made a really fantastic statement there, where there's a clear difference between the two roles that really statistics doesn't capture. We can talk all the stats you want, but when it comes to the real lived experience of folks that have been a single parent, particularly single moms, it's much more difficult. The contrast between a single parent mom and a single parent dad is way different. I don't like those type of divisive videos because a lot of times, they're definitely skewed. They're giving a perspective. I almost feel like they're propaganda, even because they use truthful information. All that information you cited right now is 100% accurate, but it's leading to the wrong conclusion. And I think, or at least the wrong insinuation that children are automatically better or should be better off with their fathers as opposed to their mothers. Every case is different. One last thing I wanted to note about the video too was that it was a young lady that was, saying these stats. Did that change your mind, or did that say anything to you? Because to me, when I see these videos, honestly, it's usually like a guy, that's saying like single dads deserve the rights and this and that and I know I sound mocking, okay, and I apologize to all the single dads out there, and I get it, and you probably think like, oh my God, he's out here caping for single moms or whatever, right? But the fact of the matter is that every time,
Right.
in my practice, anecdotally, and also the stats bear out, we guys have it easy. We really do have it easy. So I'm not here to just, beat on the bush, and try to make it like men are the bad guys or anything like that. To the contrary, I think there are things that do need to be fixed for men. For example, custodial issues that, we don't have that support when we do have custodial issues. I think 100% that needs to be revamped. But anyways, getting back to the video, usually I see guys that are doing those videos, right? There's check these facts out, men are better at this, men are better at that, and they have the little list here and they go, point by point, this and that. But then, when when we were seeing the video and it's a lady and she's, over here, busting out these facts, it really kind of messed with me a little bit. It really kind of made me like just look at it, even just the presentation of that. Did that have any effect to you? Were you prepared for that, Kristina?
I think that's why I had to pause and why we're even doing this, because it did impact me more. If it was a dude who is like you said, saying single dads, come on, I would have just been like, oh, more single dads, just try, and not to say that that's not important, but it doesn't hit at home as much as a woman advocating for the single dads. And so it did make me pause and watch the video and then fact check it. And yeah, that's why we're here. So definitely part of the influence of how that video was impactful.
Did you read any of the comments on the video?
I didn't do that, no.
No. So I read a couple of the comments, and again, it's a broken record, right? But it was part of that crowd, and one of the comments did bother me, where it said men are naturally better than women. And so, and I know it's just one comment from some rando on Instagram, but that's the type of things that these type of videos, they bother me because they spread this narrative. And yes, there's sprinklings of truth here and there, but there's also this larger narrative going on of, no, women are not as good as men, even in the or in the parenting realm, and it's stuff like that particular comment that I feel is just creating further divide, goes right to somebody that quite honestly is not open to ideas, but probably looking for confirmation bias. And this type of video hits them, that's the type of video they want. As soon as that video comes up, they're like, oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Playing a little devil's advocate with you.
Okay.
I'm going to say there are certain things that men typically do better with parenting than women. And I'm not saying that I'm super agreeing with the statistic, but I do feel that fathers present children with better stability in a lot of different ways. Well, maybe not a lot of different ways, but definitely financial stability. They tend to be just more financially stable. And not to say a woman can't be that. So I'm talking in big generalizations, because I feel I'm financially stable and I'm pretty emotionally stable. So I would disagree for myself. But in general, those two things really do make a difference in parenting. I mean, fathers they don't coddle their children as much as women do. And they do more of this preparing, like tough love, which prepares them for real life a little bit more than maybe a mother who's coddling and, trying to make sure that their kid doesn't get their feelings hurt all the time. I think that fathers, that brings a certain value to how a child's raised and whether or not they're prepared for the real world. So emotionally and financially, if the child's not struggling quite as much, and it's just statistically known that men make more money, right? Then that's going to make a big difference in upbringing. And fathers are better at laying down ground rules and then not budging. So they're good at boundaries. And so, again, very general, but they do have some attributes that could be presented as better in the parenting realm.
So I would agree that men are perfectly capable of doing everything that women can do, and that women can do pretty much anything men can do. I generally see in my practice that it's I would say about 90%, Kristina, where it's the men that are emotionally not in charge.
Interesting.
And yes, absolutely. They've gone. I'm
going to stop you for a second. I'm going to ask you about that, because I guess I may have phrased that wrong. When I mean emotional, I agree. They don't have as much emotional control, actually. And maybe I'm just not saying it right. But I do feel like men can be more emotionally, it's not stable, but predictable. And it's the predictability that helps in parenting. Because even if you have a father that rages, if you know what his triggers are as a child, you learn to navigate that, and will learn to work around it. Versus females that could be more emotionally sporadic and a little bit harder to figure out for a child. And I just wanted your take on that, because that's really, I think, much more of what I was meaning to say about emotional stability with men, like that it's more predictable for a child, so then they can navigate it better.
I think what you're getting at is actually emotional consistency.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah. Where you know how dad's gonna react, as opposed to maybe how mom's gonna react. I know when we frame it that way, I definitely do understand that, because I was raised in that kind of household where my dad was a fire breather, and raged and was getting mad and so forth. But my mom was unpredictable. Sometimes she was nice, sometimes she was kind, sometimes she was my dad's cheerleader. Sometimes, she, I thought I could confide in her, and it turns out she told my dad, and so it can definitely be, I think anecdotally, in that, with my lived experience, I can definitely see what you're talking about in that sense, where my parents definitely fit that model. But again, in my practice, I do feel that I've helped out enough parents that I can tell, that a lot of times, the majority of the times, the gentlemen are dealing still with a lot of pain and this and that. And again, it's stigma, right? We're guys aren't supposed to be in tune with their emotions. They're not supposed to get therapy. They're not supposed to do this and that. So obviously, they, a lot of times they don't know how to handle their emotions. And why? Because they don't have the right tools. The only tools they know is the way their parents, parented. You always talk about, like, people, the reason you do this is because you want to teach people to parent better than abuelita. And that's not because abuelita was a bad person or this and that. It's just that she did what she could with what she knew. And so I think a lot of times the folks that I help out with, particularly the men, it's really, they're doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know. I don't necessarily blame them, because it's tough. It's tough. And then when you have stigmas, we were talking earlier about society and its views towards women, it certainly affects men too, where men were not supposed to talk about our emotions, and men were supposed to be tough, and we can't show emotions and this and that. And I think I shared this story already, but I think it's kind of a nice little kind of closing thought, if you will, where, I had one father tell me like he was having a bad day and his daughter caught on, and, he said, "Oh, it's okay. Everything's fine." Da, da, da. And I told him, "Why are you lying to your daughter?" And he goes, "Well, what do you mean? Protecting her?" I go, "No, you're not protecting her. Actually, you're lying to her. She's your loved one, right?" He goes, "Of course." Then why would you lie to a loved one? Now I'm not saying like you got to spill the beans to her and tell her like, "Yeah, my girlfriend cheated on me and my boss, gave me a demerit or whatever." You don't have to go through all that, but you just simply say like, "Hey, baby, I had a tough day today. Today was a tough day, but I'm really glad to be here. So if I'm a little down, I'm sorry, but it's okay. Let's have some fun or something." And one day he called me out of the blue. This was weeks later, I think even months later. He called me out the blue and he told me, and he was like, I could still hear him like, just like emotionally, like not exhausted, but just like going through that whole emotion. And he told me, he goes, "Man, I just had a moment." And he said like he was having a rough day. He picked up his daughter and he told his daughter just that. He goes, she says, "Hey, what's wrong, Daddy?" And he said like, "I'm just thinking about a lot of things, baby girl. It was a rough day today, and I had this happen, but it's okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm happy because I got to pick you up." And his daughter, got with him, leaned over and gave him a hug and said, "It's okay, Daddy. We'll get through this together." And it just like killed him. I mean, not killed him. It just like wow.
Yeah.
And it just showed, that he was teaching his daughter like, hey, it's okay to have issues, but how do we handle these issues? Well, we handle them by not letting them overtake us. And the other thing he did was show perspective. He told his daughter like, "Yeah, I'm having a bad day, but guess what? It's actually a good day because I got to see you today." So it's teaching her how to cope with those emotions. And then what did she do? She said, "Hey, we got this." And what else could a father or a mother want than your kids really just saying like, "Hey, it's okay. We got this together." I thought it was great. And I thought it was a great way of showing how like, a father, by being honest and showing emotional vulnerability to their child, that they're really being the best father that they can be for their child.
Impactful parent, I want to hear from you. Leave me a voice message at speakpipe.com/theimpactfulparent and become a part of the show. Tell me your first name, your favorite episode, and why you love that episode so much. I want to hear your feedback, and it's easy with SpeakPipe. Go to speakpipe.com/theimpactfulparent, and I can't wait to hear from you. The predictability of how your parent is going to react is huge in helping mental health with children. And we've talked about that before. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an interesting example you did, because it kind of brings us also back to, all right, it was a father who learned how to be emotionally stable and a role model to his daughter. So it was very impactful. Same scenario presented with a woman. Would it just be normal? Like, would that just be not as impactful if she would have done exactly the same thing? Is that just expected because she's female?
Ooh,
and we're more
question.
in tune to ourselves? Because you were talking about how, it's a girl that she's the one who gave the statistics. That was so much more impactful because she was a woman. And in this case, this is so much more impactful because it was a man.
Yeah. And I think it's because, again, we're talking about how society has conditioned us, and we have these implicit biases, and we have these internal ideas of what things should be, right? And so when you hear a young lady talking about father statistics, it kind of creates this little slight, dissonance, right? That you kind of questioning yourself. And the same thing with that one, because the guy, he was obviously, when he first told me, he's like, "Well, no, I want to be tough for my daughter," that's what he grew up with, and I'm sure, in his household, men don't cry, and, we don't talk about our problems, we just toughen up, and he realized, like, hey, if I want to like kind of break this generational curse of emotional instability, I got to start with me, and he took and again, I'm not a licensed professional counselor. I want to make that 100% clear. I've been through my own mental health journey. And so I do tell folks like, hey, maybe you should consider, your mental wellness journey, going through therapy, etc. And on occasion, I share my own toolkit, but my toolkit is for me. I can't tell everybody, use my toolkit for your problems. You might have some other issues you got to deal with. But in that case, I was giving them something that I would do, that I would say like, you can't hide. Kids are smart. Kids will figure things out. And so when they see that, they read that, and they read that you're having a tough time, the last thing you want to do is tell them, A, you're wrong, and B, lie to them. That's just, you're creating a dissonance for them. Now they're thinking like, well, okay, that's weird. So yeah, you're right. When I share that story, and I didn't even realize that right now until you pointed that out, that I do share that story quite a bit. And I'm pretty sure, and again, going to biases, right? But I'm pretty sure I've heard that same story from a single mom's perspective. And I probably haven't shared that not only nearly as often, but probably I've never shared it that way.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah. You make me feel like crap.
Don't feel bad.
No, I'm kidding.
Because that's how we all are.
Weird.
Like, it's
You're
crazy.
Right. You're right.
I'm going to end with asking a couple two-part question to you that I thought was intriguing too as you're talking. Because as more same-sex partners are becoming parents, I wonder how we as a society will evolve and change in this respect. When we have, two dads or two moms and they get divorced, and who's going to get the custody and how is that going to look? And everything that we've been talking about, it just like throws that wrench in there because we are evolving that way. There's a lot more same-sex partners becoming parents. And to that extent, how does gender biases influence custody decisions in the United States? Because it's going to affect those same-sex partners, maybe? And that's okay. I don't think we have to have answers. I think it's interesting to pose the question and see if people have comments about it. And so let's hear what people think about that. Any final thoughts on what we talked about today, Rodrigo?
Yeah, I want to challenge folks that when they see videos like that to really kind of look into themselves first and see what kind of possible biases you have towards, videos like that or anything that you see online, and challenge yourself. I think that's really the most important thing, challenge yourself, not necessarily to agree with everything, that's not going to happen, but to accept the possibility that something is different or something is not what you thought it was. Because I definitely, when I saw these stats and everything, I knew they were like this, but I didn't know it was such a significant difference between the two. And I think that's good. I think that's really good. I'm glad that, you shared that with me and that we were able to talk about it, because in the end, that's the only way we really grow, right? By learning and by kind of, accepting that maybe I was wrong on something, and, let's see why, and let's get some more information and then draw conclusions from there. So that's what I would do. I would challenge folks, to really challenge themselves, both from a knowledge standpoint, but also from a parenting standpoint.
While research provides valuable insights, it's still important to note that the impact of single mother or single father households on children can be influenced by a variety of factors, of course, including quality of parenting, social economic status, and individual children's characteristics, just because every kid is different, right? But both single mother and single father households can provide nurturing environments for children. Start your Impactful Parent journey by downloading the Impactful Parent app. The Impactful Parent app is free, so you can carry help, tips, and parenting resources right in your pocket. Download the app today. You got nothing to lose since it's a free download. So go to theimpactfulparent.com or your phone's app store and search Impactful Parent, and then discover how you can step up your parenting game and become a more impactful parent. If you would like to reach out to Rodrigo Bravo for his co-parenting mediation and coaching services, you can email him at rodrigobravojr@gmail.com. Remember that this episode is just a small part of what the Impactful Parent offers. Also available are online courses, parent support groups, coaching services, and of course, the Impactful Parent app. So find out more at theimpactfulparent.com. But until next time, you got this. I'm just here to help. Thank you for listening today. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend. And don't forget, the Impactful Parenting Podcast is an extension of the Impactful Parent community. Go to the Impactful Parent website and download the free Impactful Parent app so you don't miss a parenting tip that can help you and your family. Thanks for listening today. So go to theimpactfulparent.com and see you next episode.